الله أكبر حي على الصلاة الله أكبر.
I rise, giving all praise to the great God of the universe, Allah, highest honors to his holy and divine prophet, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, Islam. Extend those honors to the harbinger, the forerunner of the prophet, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who indeed warned and stirred up the nations, Islam. That's it. How the Moors on this holy day? Trying to find my spot. I wanted to read from a topic that's trending very heavy today in Asiatic America, and that topic is reparations. And reparations is, has been a topic that has been, long discussed, and this has been a thing that has been long overdue to Asiatics in America for all the injustices that has been, placed upon, the Asiatics in America as well. Islam. One of the leading, I would say, groups that has been leading on this discussion is the ADOS. And ADOS stands for American Descendants of Slavery. And one of the controversies, I guess, that has been discussed, especially within the Moorish community, is that, how can we identify with a name that deludes to slavery? Prophet said that, that Negro, Black, Colored, these are names that delude to slavery. Not only names, but principles that delude to slavery. Islam? And so when we have a name that, that represents, or a name that, that is identified by this movement as American Descendants of Slavery, of course, there are a lot of red flags that come up. However, I want to, I want to say, that as Moorish Americans, we know that, the Moorish Science Temple of America, the Moorish Divine National Movement is the sole foundation upon which, which Asiatics can receive their divine rights unmolested. Islam. But us knowing that, we have to recognize that our people out in the cares of the world don't have the same understanding that we have. And it is our duty, as said in Acts 6, that, we ought to teach our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are not Negroes, colored folk, Black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until the year 1865 during the time of slavery. Islam? So if that be the case, and our people are still identifying themselves by names and principles that delude to slavery, then there are some deeper issues that we have to focus on, rather than, hammering them across the head with the nationality talk. Because what is the definition of nationality? Quality and character that arises from a person belonging to a nation or a state. So if that is the definition, then we must be teaching them quality and character. That's right. We can't go banging across their head, talking about, this, you have to be this or else, that may be our position. However, we have to be what we know. If we're Moorish Americans, if we are living the lifestyle of a Moorish American, as a clean and pure nation, we have to first focus on home. And it's interesting, Brother Yosef, started with that chapter 26, the chapter on unity, because we have to first unite within first. We have to demonstrate being a pure and clean nation, so that other people, so that our people in the cares of the world can see that being demonstrated. Right now they can't see it, and that is that's just the truth. They can't see that being demonstrated. Islam? So it starts with self. That is what the doctrine is all about, self. If we're being the best self, if we're being our best selves, we won't have to worry about, filling up the seats in the Moorish Science Temple of America. Because people will come. They say if you build it, they will come. Islam? The temple of perfected man. But we have to perfect the temple first. Right? If we build it, they will come. But we have to build ourselves first. We have to start. Charity begins at home, right? Islam. So if chapter 26 talks about, the holy instructions on unity, and as I talked about some weeks before, when we're talking about unity, the Prophet doesn't give step-by-step instructions on how to go out and unite with other people, because this chapter is talking about uniting with yourself.
Right.
It's talking about uniting your higher and your lower self.
That's right.
Because if your lower self is in control, then
All this long game straight, brother.
Islam, right? So, honest to brother Yosef and Rafa'El, he touched on some great points. He talked about wisdom, nurturing your mind with knowledge, right? Because wisdom is the fruit of applied knowledge.
Islam.
Otherwise, it's just information, right? Otherwise, you just know stuff.
Yeah.
And again, Prophet said, if man would know, he must himself be what he knows. Paraphrasing.
The highest knowledge is but folly.
It's Islam, right? The highest of human knowledge is but blindness and folly. So, it talks about the gifts of the understanding are the treasures of Allah. And when we're talking about this topic on reparations, our people have a particular portion. In particular, this particular movement has a particular portion. And if you read, if you read from their website, you'll find that it's some strong truth in there, right? It's some strong positions in there that that we can get behind as Moorish Americans, because we can't go in talking about you got to proclaim your nationality so you can get reparations. Well, we ain't got it in 100 years, over 100 years. As Moorish Americans, we ain't even scratched the surface. There's other people outside of ourselves who have got this conversation sparked, and fired up. So Moorish Americans don't have a leg to stand on to talk about, being the front runner of this movement. We have to we have to basically fall in line, right? We have to support those who are leading that cause. And then, inshallah, we can talk about the importance of nationality, because we know that that's going to be an issue. Islam? So the gifts of the understanding are the treasures of Allah. He appointed to everyone his portion in what measures seemeth good unto himself. Prophet talks about this being a Rotarian, our movement carrying on a Rotarian complexion. So if it carries on a Rotarian complexion, then we can't beat up those other people who make up part of that Rotarian complexion, right? That is a portion of what we need, to repair our nation. But that begs the question, what nation? What nation needs the reparation? What nation was injured? Who are the people? These people that ended up in chattel slavery, where do they come from? What is their name? Brother Yosef again talked about, I'll just read. What shall we call him? And this is from the Moorish literature. What shall we call him? Because one of the things about in this movement is about what the name should be, right? How do we address government with a name that represents the issue, right? And what they came up with was honest to them, American descendants of slavery, because we are American citizens. So they are this is what they know.
Yeah.
And that is true. We are American citizens. This is the flag of our birth.
That's right.
Right?
Islam.
This is so if this is the flag of our birth, of course we are Americans. What did it say at the end of your nationality card? I am a citizen of the USA. Noble Drew Ali, the Prophet, Islam. So the Prophet says, what shall we call him? And that first sentence, when Brother Yosef read it, it like, I don't know, it sparked something in me that was like, because I kept reading it, I read it all the time. But he made it make so much sense because, I'll just read it. So often our various journalists find trouble in selecting the proper name for the Moorish American. So he said that the journalists find trouble. But it's not only the journalists who are finding trouble in selecting the name. It is our own people.
Right.
And as much as we're talking, telling them, hey, your nationality is Moorish American, they're not hearing that. So we still finding trouble in selecting the proper name. So we come up with all other kind of names to identify ourselves. right? We would rather cling on to the names and principles that delude to slavery rather than selecting a name that represents our legacy, that represents that continued historical continuity to reconnect ourselves back to our historical legacy. So often, our various journalists find trouble. We've been finding trouble for, my math is
150 years.
150 years?
Let's round it off.
We've been finding trouble that long. Islam? You know, President Obama outlawed Negro. He made it against the law. What's the word? Another word for Negro? What's the English word for Negro?
Black.
Black. So black is against the law now. It's been against the law. He just came back and, you know, put the stamp. You know, it's against the law. Anywho, some say Negro, another will brand him race man, still another will call him Afro-American, and then some colored, dark American, Coon, Shine, the Brethren, and your folks. It is indeed a hard matter to find something suitable for the various occasions where a title needs to be used. Read that again. I don't know if Brother Yosef repeated that sentence, you know, last week. I think it was last week he talked about that. No, 2 weeks ago. Anyway, it is indeed a hard matter to find something suitable for the various occasions. We got an occasion going on right now, where a title needs to be used. We already got a title. Why are we creating other ones? You know, I posted on Facebook. Y'all know I like Facebook. I'm addicted to Facebook. But I posted that, you know, black people are addicted to creating movements that already exist. We create movements every year for the purpose that another movement already have. Just join the movement that already has that purpose. Does that make sense? You know, why would I create a movement that has the same purpose as the UNIA when the UNIA is already in operation? I just go join the UNIA, right? Why would I got you. Why would I establish, it's a grocery store, I mean, it's a gas station right there. Why would I put another gas station right here? I won't make no money. I won't get anywhere. My gas station won't grow. That one is already established. The people in the community already know about that gas station. It already has been in existence for a very long time, right? And if I put a gas station right here and I don't know the people in the community and I don't have a relationship with them, I ain't gonna make no money. My gas station ain't gonna grow. I ain't gonna be able to, I'm sorry, I'm using my southern vernacular for all those in YouTube world. I'm not going to be able to grow. I'm not going to be able to expand, right? And I'm not going to be able to reach the desired population, you know, or to serve, you know, the desired population, because that already exists right there. Anywho, I'm sorry.
No, I was just, I kind of figured your question kind of rhetorical, but we know the answers to why they're always trying to build other organizations. Nobody just, it's like, I was always told growing up, play your position till you get in position. And a lot of people don't want to play a position. They want to be the head man on the totem pole. And
that is the problem.
That's the problem.
Because everybody wants to be the head honcho.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that other, you know, the head person in charge. The head Negro in charge.
That's it, the Negro.
Right? Yes, because we're trying to solve the Negro problem, right? But everybody want to be the head Negro. And Negro is against the law. Islam?
Indeed.
Islam.
You know, because a Negro can't solve the Negro problem. Think about that. Negroes can't solve the Negro problem. Because Negro is the problem. Islam?
Oh, wow.
You know, it's like getting the flu shot. They give you the flu to fight the flu. But, you know, I ain't no doctor, so, you know, I don't want to.
You're on fire tonight.
I'm just saying. Islam. So it says, did they have a national name when first brought to these shores in the early part of the 17th century? If so, what was it? Do not the land from which they were forced have a name? Because this movement talks, you know, the ADO, and I'm not beating up on the ADOS movement. I'm just trying to show some correlation between how both can assist each other, right? You know, the movement talks about, you know, basically slavery as something beginning in 1619. We know that, you know, slavery began way before that, right? But that is the narrative that's being pushed, right? That is the narrative that has been, you know, the you know, that's been the leading narrative for a very long time. So because that is the leading narrative for a very long time, you know, people accept that as truth, and then it becomes a part of your doctrine, right? It becomes a part of, you know, the thing that you're trying to use to receive, you know, reparative justice from. But, you know, the prophet says, you know, is it that these people have no proper name? Did they have a national name when first brought to these shores in the early part of the 17th century? So that lines up with that 1619 date. But we know that by identifying as Moorish American, you know, the prophet is connecting us to something that is beyond that, right?
Indeed.
Because we don't begin, you know, our history didn't begin at slavery.
Exactly.
You know, we didn't start, we didn't just pop up, you know, on the earth in 1619. You know, there was something that was going on before that time period, right? There was an entire political structure that we had before that time period. So again, what shall we call him? That's the name of this you know, this article. So it says, if so, what was it? Then not the land from which they were forced have a name. You know, we say that the Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites whom inhabited the northwestern and the southwestern shores of Africa. He's identifying where we were forced from, right? He's pointing out that, you know, he's, like I said, reconnecting us back to that historical legacy so that we may know. Masterminds trace themselves backward through the ages, masterminds trace themselves, and thus they know. Islam? All right, anyway, moving forward. So I'm gonna read a little bit from, you know, from the website because, you know, again, I'm not, you know, speaking radical, agitating toward that movement because I actually do like the platform, right? I like the data. The data is impeccable. You know, the research that you know went into creating this this movement is you know, bar none. It's top tier. You know, talking about the racial wealth gap and things like that. Talking about you know, identifying the injustices that, you know, happen to Asiatics in America. So this is from their website. It's called www.ados101.com. So ados101.com, and it's basically giving a layout of what they call the Black Agenda, right? There's also a portion on there that talks about the, you know, it gives you information about ADOS 101, its founders. And I want to give honors to the founders, Yvette Carnell and Antonio, I think it's Moore. I can't think of his last name, but they've put in some heavy work, you know, to establish this movement. You know, my only contention is that I'll get into that. So it says the Black Agenda or Black Agenda. As a specific group with a specific justice claim, the ADOS movement demands a specific agenda with policy prescriptions that address the losses stemming from institutional slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, convict leasing, mass incarceration, and immigration. So they're, you know, setting the foundation that, you know, these are the issues that we need to address, you know. So when we talk about American descendants of slavery, I'll say that. One of the contentions that I have is that we're not descendants of an institution. Right? We're not descendants of an institution. You know, because again, first of all, we didn't, you know, our beginning didn't start in slavery.
Exactly.
Right? So how can I be a descendant of slavery if my history goes back way, you know, way beyond that? So we have to identify the appropriate name, as it says. So often our various journalists find trouble in selecting the proper name for the Moorish American. Right? But it talks about, the institution of slavery, Jim Crow, redlining. We know what redlining is. District map. Right. Well, and another part of that is to refuse a loan or insurance to someone because they live in an area deemed to be a poor financial risk. So they're redlining, they draw lines around particular areas where people are maybe low income or poor are, and they basically oppress those people by not allowing them.
1913.
This started long, yeah. But yeah.
I know it's part of the New Deal too, is when the banks really got involved,
right.
And that's how they kind of capitalism kind of undeveloped. I would say, quote unquote, the book I read called "How Capitalism Undeveloped Black America."
Islam. So it says, we demand a new deal for Black America, which includes, and that's another thing, it refers to, these people as Black America, but however, the movement itself talks about the identity of Black and African American being, culturally ambiguous, right? They actually disagree with those names, they actually, agree that those are not proper names for the people, for these particular people. Right. So in knowing that, there is space for Moorish Americans to step in and say, hey, so often our various journalists find trouble in selecting the proper name for the Moorish Americans. Right? Islam. So I got you. So there's space for us to have that conversation. And they're open to that conversation, but one of the issues is that because the movement has had a black eye for so long, a lot of people, when they hear Moorish, they're turned off to it because they don't know the difference between those who are practicing the folly versus those who are following the true teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Islam. So when we step in and we say Moorish, what pops up in their mind is, fighting the police, going to court, how to get out of traffic tickets, all the folly that's being practiced by those who don't understand what was brought to us, in 1913 by our holy and divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Islam? Yeah.
You kind of hit it the head on the nail, and it's the camelback, like you said, it's just other people giving the movement a black eye, and us swinging our sword trying to cut down that falsehood out the way. Is that, and also, because we always say Moorish American Muslim, because we teaching people their national divine creed.
I was going to that.
And that's what I was going with.
Islam. Because that was actually leading us to my next point. As far as having a discussion about Moorish American, because again, when we talk about nationality and divine creed, or even nationality and religion, a lot of our people are turned off by religion, right? But they think that we're talking about the same idea of religion as has been imposed, upon us by the European nations. And that is not the case. When we talk about religion, we're simply saying that we're, reconnecting ourselves back to our divine creed, reconnecting ourselves back to Allah. That's right. We're tying or binding ourselves back to the ways of our forefathers. Islam. And that, but when people hear Islam, right? When we hear Islam, people think pale Arab, right? People think women oppression, right? People think, praying 5 times a day, which is good because you should pray as much as possible, right? But people think of the many different customs of the Arab, right? Well, we're not the pale Arabs. We're Moorish American. And like our brother Grand Sheikh Hakiym-Bey would say, Islam is all over the world, right? Islam in China looks Chinese, right? Indeed. Islam in Senegal looks Senegalese. Islam in America, right? Islam in Moorish America looks Moorish, right? So when we have, you know, our culture and the way by way that we express our Islam is not the same as you see all over the world, right? We have our own distinct customs and things like that, but we know that custom alter not the nature of truth. Islam. So custom also not the nature of truth, right? Truth is all.
All is Allah.
Right? All is Allah. All right, so I'm gonna read a little more from the website. Islam. So one of the things it says under the black agenda, it says we need set-asides for American descendants of slavery, not minorities. A throwaway category, which includes all groups except white men. That categorization has allowed Democrats to use programs like affirmative action as giveaways to all groups in exchange for votes. The bribery must end. That begins with a new designation on the census with ADOS and another for black immigrants. Black immigrants should be barred from accessing affirmative action and other set-asides intended for ADOS, as should Asians, Latinos, white women, and other minority groups. In addition, ADOS hiring and employment data must be demanded for all businesses receiving tax credits, incentives, and governmental support, as well as all governmental agencies, national, state, and local. It is our belief that this will show that there are minimal, if any, ADOS professionals in fields including but not limited to engineering, medical, legal, and tech. Now, one of the things that they're distinguishing is that, you know, by having these particular designations of, you know, black or African American, that many other groups can come in and identify themselves as such, right? Again, it's culturally ambiguous, right? Many people can come and say that I'm black. You know, folks all across Africa talk about how they're black all of a sudden. And when they, you know, migrate over here, they identify oftentimes as African American, right? To receive certain benefits that are geared to, you know, that are designed to be specific to our people, you know, who they will label as ADOS, right? And so that's one of the issues that they're addressing is that, you know, this is not a proper name. So often, our various journalists find trouble in selecting the proper name for the Moorish American. Islam? So again, you know, there's space for us to step in and have that conversation and talk about nationality, but we have to be, you know, the Prophet talks about, you know, tolerance, right?
Religious tolerance.
We have to have religious tolerance, right? And not the, you know, when we say religion, we're not talking about, again, the European psychology or that form of religion. We're saying that we have to tolerate or be able, because again, if we're Moorish Americans, we're supposed to be scientists, right? This is the Moorish Science Temple of America. So if we're having a conversation with people who identify themselves as American descendant of slavery, we have to be scientific and understand what they're saying, right? We have to be scientific and know, because science is to know what they're, you know, the intent behind what they're saying, so that we can move past that, you know, that thing and have a dialogue, right? Have a dialogue that's going to be beneficial to both parties, right? So again, we can't come in talking about you Moorish American, right? But there's space for us to have that conversation. But we can't just come in boasting of superior understandings as the brother demonstrated already, right? So read a little bit more. Pardon self, let me find. I can't find it. Either who. Islam, I'm sorry.
Islam. What I was going to say was you posed the question, how were we to engage and integrate with them, or as Moorish Americans? And I was saying, immediately came to me, the Prophet said mix kindness with reproof.
Islam.
And so in mixing kindness with reproof, an example of us mixing kindness with reproof is us going back into other lessons or other points before is demonstrating unity.
Islam.
Salvation, Allah, unity.
Praise Allah.
One of the ways that we're looking to do that in the near future is bonding and unifying with the with the New Era Atlanta and the Hood to Hood program that they are electing to throw. I think this weekend. Tomorrow. Islam.
So, because again, when we're talking about unity doesn't mean that you have to be with my group.
That's right.
It doesn't mean that you have to call yourself what I call myself. Functional unity, we talk about functional unity, not just unity, because we can all come together and sit around and have, talks and eat pastries and, sip tea. But functional unity is something, where we come together and create, develop a plan of action and carry out that plan of action. So when we're talking about integrate, I don't want to use the word integrate, because integrate means that I am, that I join your group, and you have to be what I am and all that stuff. But, if I'm uniting, with this movement, because again, what's a movement without organization?
Islam.
It's a gang of people.
Right? People moving without direction. Right? What the prophet said, man need a pattern for his life. Right? So where does that pattern come from? Because right now this movement, and again, honest to this movement, because the like I said, the data is impeccable, right? The research is impeccable. But is it a movement? Right? Oftentimes I see, I'm reading, and when ADOS is mentioned, it's a hashtag. I'm not a hashtag. That's not, my identity is not a hashtag, man.
Come on,
Islam? So when we're talking about, a movement, because again, when we think about, especially on this topic of reparations, when you look at and this is not to say for us to be like, them, per se, but when we look at the other groups, I would say, for example, the Jewish Americans, right? They utilize being descendants of the Holocaust, right? But they were Jewish Americans all day long, or Jewish, right? Their identity didn't change, but they used that name to carry out their mission, right? But they did not, they didn't say that this is my identity, descendant of the Holocaust, because we got a Holocaust too, right? But that is not my identity. That is not who I am. I am much more than the Holocaust.
Exactly.
Islam?
Islam.
Like you were talking about earlier about, not like integrating, but just unifying with other movements, as, Temple 19 been doing a great job of, doing it. I've been watching, and it's a beautiful thing. And it inspired me too, like from my previous, employment. It's like, there's always been a talk, because in the circle, they always say black, and it's like I had a meeting where they were at, what I mean, and hear them out and things of that nature. And we always had intellectual discussions, and then the passions arise, and we'll pour some water, something on the ground, we'll chill it, and before this even happened, a whole month went by, 2 months went by, and I never said, oh, we Moors, you this, you that, because it's not what you do, what you say is how you say it. It's not what you do, is how you do it. You know what I mean? And it's a science and stuff. And so when they talk to me about certain things, I hit them with a plethora of information, and then they're like, whoa. So now, I'm having talks with these same brothers now, priests and everything, And when I realized, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do what the prophet said. We got to take this message to the four corners of the earth, and it's nationality, but like you said, what is the definition now?
Islam.
So quality of character means you can have 8 towels,
right?
But this time might be made of linen. This time, so these are just different qualities. You feel what I'm saying?
Islam.
So I had to introduce them to. I was like, well, your lineages is your lineages will be Yoruba. So you would be considered a Yoruba American, not Black American. but because it ties you back into a lineage.
Islam.
But now, even with that, and being in America, you will still have to have a political foundation, a political structure, a vehicle to be able to move your movement, you know what I'm saying, in today's times, to be able to receive your rights unmolested, because you know, because you want to be, you know, you want to practice your religion, you want to practice spirituality, but you want to do it within a safe confinement. You know what I'm saying? So that you don't have your rights messed up. So I said, this is one of the things we learn at the Moore Science Temple of America. We learning this foundation of government and things like that, so we can be organized and we can move. So as I'm just talking to them about that, finally it clicked. It started clicking with them. You know what I mean? They was like, first thing they said, man, see, you explain it differently. See, we didn't even know it like that. I just said, boy, what they say, you need to start your temple. I said, no, just come to Temple 19.
It's live.
Because this is where I got it from. I said, this is what we do at our temple. We honor all our prophets. Just because we show you 4 prophets doesn't mean those are only 4 we honor.
Islam.
We honor all universal prophets.
Islam.
You know what I'm saying?
Islam. And, you know, and one of the, you know, great things you said, because like you said, you know, boom, I got it now, right? There was a sister, I can't remember her name, but she talked about how, you know, all the woke folks, you know, are always talking about how people are asleep and, you know, and sheep and things like that. And no matter what they say, that the people are not getting what they're saying. Well, is it that the people are not getting it? Or is it that, you know, you're not effective at conveying the message? Islam, right? So again, we have a lot of Moors who, you know, and this is not to you know, to speak, you know, radical agitating toward any group, you know, you know, or any organization, but we have a lot of people who are pushing an ideal that is not in line with Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And so what that tells, you know, what that says is that you have qualified teachers here in the Moore Science Temple of America, Temple number 19. So I give honors to, you know, our Grand Sheikh Harry Wright CL, you know, for preparing us to go out and be able to speak the message, you know, in a way that it was prepared for us.
Clearness and power.
With clearness and power, Islam. So, you know, I just wanted to kind of, you know, touch on that topic a little bit. And I know reparations is something that everybody is, you know, I don't want to say everybody, but a large portion of our people are, you know, are starting to have that conversation. And that conversation, you know, in my estimation, is going to lead to, you know, to what does reparations look like? Which that conversation is already having. What does it look like? And, you know, I think it's HR 40. I think it's 40. And when you get a chance, look that up. And, you know, this bill is proposed so that we can study, you know, what basically study reparations and, you know, what is needed, you know, how is it's impacted our people, how can we repair these people? But again, who was injured? Who was the injured party?
Let's call them by that.
Right? We got to identify who the injured party was, because we were talking about a group of people who were brought here in, you know, in what they say is 1619, where they came from, right? We could say Africa, but where? We're in Africa,
Northwest,
right?
Southwest.
Northwest, southwestern shores of Africa, right? And Prophet said Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwest and the southwestern shores of Africa.
I hear you, bro. Islam.
You know,
Islam? So, you know, they got questions. We got answers in the Moore Science Temple of America, to quote our brother Grand Sheikh Hakiym-Bey, right? You got questions, we got answers, right? So, you know, so there are there's a lot that we have to offer to that movement. There's a lot that movement has to offer to us.
Indeed.
So we can't be closed off, and again, we can't boast a superior understanding. You know, the prophet says that teach it to the ignorant. For their instruction. Teach it to the wise for thine own improvement, right? So we have to be strategic in how we, you know, have this discussion, because, you know, oftentimes when Moorish Americans open their mouths, they push people away. Sometimes we have to learn how to be quiet, right? Sit back and listen, because we can learn a thing or two as well, right? What is it? What that verse one say?
Understanding the treasure of Allah.
The gifts of the understanding are the treasures of Allah. He appointed to everyone his portion in what measure seemeth good unto himself. Right? so other people have something that we can learn from too.
That's right.
Right? We ain't got all the, I mean, we got all the wisdom, but we haven't comprehended all the wisdom yet, right? Islam, my boy.
No, I'm just saying, your measures just keep inspiring me and stuff to spark off.
Islam.
Because this is a good topic, great topic that we've been having, both measures, and one led into the other. But yeah, it's like, we know we are Moors, and it says that, and we know that this is a proper name for our people in America and other parts of the world to be identified with. It's like I want to say blanket term, but it is. But you know what I'm saying? Because it's like, okay, it's like the Europeans. It's like, okay, we're not gonna call nobody, the Moors no more. We're gonna call them blacks now, whether they come from, whether they're inhabitants of Africa. They come from Africa. They're inhabitants of Africa. That's not the name of that land. We know that's a Mexican. You know what I mean? But or whether they come from Brazil, Islam, or any of those things. Like the Prophet said, through this nationality, you are able to trace yourself back. You know what I'm saying? And bind yourself back. Now we know that once we start going back as being Moorish Americans, we can go to 1619, but then we go back further than that.
Islam.
Then we start seeing these empires.
Islam.
Then we start seeing, the Mandinkas. We start seeing the Congolese. We start seeing the Benin Empire. We start seeing, and then you start seeing how, they identify themselves more. To this day, they
Islam.
I'm an Uber driver. I buy them fast, like in the car. You know what I mean? I met a brother the other day from Gambia. I did not know Kunta Kinte came from Gambia. But when he found out I was a Muslim, he used to get car sick, but we started talking, and he started just, feeling good, and he found out I was a Muslim, and he was really happy, you know what I'm saying? And he said, the good thing about being a Muslim, brother, is that, and he was a young brother, about 21, he's like, we're not just brothers in this life, but in the other life. He said, I feel better now because I know you was a Muslim. I said, no, you feel better now because you heard me speak to you in the manner in which I spoke. Then when you found out I was a Muslim, it was only confirmation. Like, I see. So you're right. You know what I'm saying? And I love the fact that, Islam is able to tie us to all our people in the motherland and adjourn. You know what I mean? And that's why the Prophet, one of the reasons why the Prophet let us know this is our divine creed.
Islam.
You know what I mean? It's the religion of peace.
Islam.
It's just an Arabic word for peace.
That's right.
Islam.
Islam, bro. Islam. Well, that's all I got.
That was enough.
So, as said in one school of thought, we meet you upon the level and part upon the square.
Islam.
Islam? Islam.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Hayya ala salah.